Gatekeepers of all those people that do not understand anything will normally rush to call what they don't understand as a superstition. Gullible melanin-dominant human beings obey that without bothering to find out how their ancient ancestors or melanin-dominant ancestors came up with those functions, because perhaps they were meant to serve them. The people behind the gatekeepers hijack those symbols and they use them. The world is awash with various symbols, billions of signs and symbols. You see them every day. The most dominant and influential without even realizing that. How is this possible? We want to discuss this topic, blacks are far from their power symbols, because these symbols establish contact with the subconscious mind. They do this with their visual ability and the sound, hence communicating faster, and they are more direct. There is no work, no mental effort in absorbing them. Their sole purpose is to create images and the moods within your life. You can read more about this from this website. These are power symbols. When we discuss about power, we are discussing inorganic, organic, and spiritual power. To understand the extreme power and the effect of billions of these symbols and review their real meaning, we have to understand three topics at the same time: symbols, signs, and totems. Why? Because these are the building blocks of global power symbols. A symbol is a sign indicating a control point that activates or deactivates a particular maneuver or a device or a system. It may be a rocker switch, a toggle switch, a push button a switch, or a virtual switch. This is very, very important because we are dealing with something that transcends physical and spiritual. So a virtual switch is more like a very great example to use on the interfacing of the symbols, the signs, as well as totems and their effects. This is a Chinese totem, because what we know is that oldest and ancient Chinese were black people, melanin-dominant human beings. Anthropologists believe that totems were universal among early societies, and the source of totems is animism. And animism apportions power and force in everything that you find on the earth. So we have to deal with a number of questions here. Where do power symbols come from? We have already indicated that they come from totems. What are symbols or signs? We have already defined them. It is a sender that turns on and off some form of inorganic, organic, or spiritual power. So this is a sign. It is not, it is a symbol, yes, but it is a sign, but it lacks power. But this is a sign that has power and a force. So what is the difference between a symbol and a sign? Symbol versus sign. A sign is different because it is an object that is taken literally. So you will say this is a fist really, and this is black power really, literally. But it is a sign. And a symbol can be taken both literally and figuratively. In other words, it goes beyond inorganic power to organic power and to spiritual power. It is clear that totemic objects are now used as powerful modern signs and a symbol. That melanin-dominant human beings have been trained to ignore their totems, and they trained to adopt these signs and the symbols without the backing of their totems. So what is power? It is the ability to do something or act in a particular way, especially as a faculty or a quality. Synonyms for power are ability, capacity, capability, potential, faculty, and competence. So a device applies that mechanical electrical power, and then there is motion and movement and speed and force. That is what we are saying. Symbols have the potential for power. Signs have no potential for power. Totems are the center of both symbols as well as signs. Every global power uses totems, not merely as a sign, but as a total package. And these signs communicate to us. And the elites use them to exercise their secret power through symbolism. Do not forget that they were powerless, the people that are now part of the elites, until they adopted melanin-dominant totems, motion, and power. So the definition of symbolism is simply that it is an image that stands for an idea. It is an image that stands for a spiritual system and can actually be applied to release that power. So, example of ancient African symbols. For the Luba, the three circles represent the supreme being, the sun, and the moon. This is a sign. This is also a symbol. But when it is activated, it becomes a symbol only, because it is now interfacing with power. And the second image here symbolizes the union of all creatures, confirming that everything in the universe is connected. That's animism. So we have got three symbols that represent power. Then we have got the yaka, the knot, which is another expression of the unity between the world and its creatures. In the yaka, the symbol would be used to protect a person's symbol, but it is force behind it. It's a sign to others, and to millions it will be a sign. But to those that know, it is a symbol as well as a source of power. Since there are no totemless melanin-dominant human beings and all of us have totems, why don't we have a global totem? Do we need a global totem really? What problems do totems solve? Why are we too far from power symbols? And guess who is using global totemic power today? It is the elites. It is the people that are running this earth. Africa is home to almost all the world's most famous fauna in human culture as lions, rhinos, cheetahs, giraffes, elephants, leopards, zebras, as well as any other totemic animal you can think of. Today, totems are only effective at the individual subconscious level. They're dominated by personal experience and operating with conscious awareness with very minimum influence at clan, tribal, national or continental level. Totems are separated and divided, and they will never be able to have global power. They will only be symbolism, end of it, and they will only be signs, full stop. Blacks are far from their power symbols because we have neglected the connection between the totems, symbols, as well as the signs. This is an example of Native American symbolism. Let us quickly add that the original indigenous Native Americans were melanin dominant. They were not of any other race. For remember, 8,500 years ago, that's when the European appeared. 15,000 years ago, that's when the Asian appeared on the earth. So we are not going to be bothered about that. There are ideological, emotional, reverential, and genealogical relationships of social groups or specific persons with animals or natural objects arising from totems. So these are the Akan clans and their totems, and their characteristics and the traits that the tribe with that totem should have. So if your totem is a parrot, eloquence and frankness. If your totem is a leopard like the Bruetua, it is aggressiveness, exceptional bravery. So these are the totems also with similar characteristics found in Zambia and Zimbabwe, these totems. Most cultures use special names and emblems, symbols or signs to refer to their totem and derive enduring identity with millions others scattered all over the earth if they happen to embrace the totem and the symbol and become assimilated to it via the characteristics depicted by that totem. If not, it is just a sign or simply a weak symbol. Of course, there are prohibitions and taboos, like killing it and eating it or touching it. Depends with which totem. Christianity, Islam, and Judaism have taught melanin dominant human beings to ignore these taboos to our peril. How do we translate current disconnection of science, symbolisms, and totems so they become effective sources of strength and influence globally? Has this been done? And where has it been done? When you look at how it can be translated and how that has been done, we look first to our own of the history of ancient Hamid and the history of ancient melanin dominant human beings as they conquered the whole earth 3 billion years ago up to about 25,000 or 15,000 years ago. There was a lot, and there was power, and there was unity. And Ubuntu or Mahati, I am who I am because of who you are, was the unity and was the philosophy that caused us to have an effective approach to our world and the worldview. We can see that 4,000 years ago, Hamid was made of 2 large kingdoms that whenever they are united, the red line was effective and safe. Whenever they were divided, the red line was disobeyed and a lot of trouble fell upon us. So disunity is what has caused us. Africans are disunited, while it's the European elites, only the elites are united in their goal to continue to rule the earth. It's not every European that understands the mechanisms and systems of how their elites are running and controlling the earth. It's only the top European elites. These elites have usurped melanin dominant totems secretly and used them as continental symbols. So we're going to show that they have been able to take these totems and build the infrastructure of their power. The United States usurped ancient Horesu, the symbol, as well as the sign, and they apply it as their power via the bald eagle, America's national bird. The bald eagle was chosen because of its association with authority and statehood. In fact, the eagle has been used as a symbol of governmental power since Roman times. So since the Greeks learned about it, they took it and they are using it effectively. America has 50 states working under their totem of the bald eagle, stolen from Horesu. Africa has 54 fighting individual divided states with very weak power. When you go to the United Kingdom, these are all their totems. They took totems from the British Empire, from the people they met as they conquered the whole earth, and adopted them and modified them as their symbols, as their totems, not only as signs. To many, these are signs, but to the elites, those that are in the know, these are symbols of their power. They switch on and off using these symbols. There is not even 1 lion in the United Kingdom, yet they adopted 3 lions and they use it in conjunction with the unicorn and their crown to rule the whole earth. Africa, with all the cheetahs, the giraffes, the antelopes, the hippos, the leopards, zebras, African elephants, snakes, and you name it, among many others, failed to unite and to use their totemic heritage to dominate the earth. They are told that their totems are demons. China wants to rule the whole world, the whole earth, to control it. They adopted their totems. They call them national animals, but we know them as totems. There are 23 provinces in China. These provinces are united under the panda, the dragon. That's how they are ruling and continue to rule. These 23 states or provinces in China are controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. They adopted their totems, which are a functional entity, giving them formalized, practical, adaptable power via the red dragon to rule the earth. Africa, with its 54 squabbling countries, forever poor and divided, shall continue to administer fervently and honestly and childishly the European borders that they were given, and they ignore their totems. India, with 28 states and the capitals, has its national symbols, which builds its character, carefully picked to represent the Indian tiger, which is their power. It's not symbolic, it's not a sign, it is their real drive for that power. The national flower, lotus, symbolizing purity. It is not just a symbol, it actually represents the switching on of that purity. Their national tree, the banyan, symbolizes immortality and foreverness. And the peacock, their national bird, symbolizes elegance and pride. And the national fruit, the mango, represents and symbolizes the tropical climate of India. Africa and all other melanin-dominant continents fight to defend Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, and ignore their totems and totemic power, and they cherish the symbols of death and destruction they were given by the colonizers and enslavers. Russia is the same story. The golden two-headed eagle on a red background represents the country's rule and the cult of the sun. The Russian Federation is united, former Union of Soviet Socialist Republics countries, whereas Africa, with 54 of squabbling, fighting, jealousy, so-called countries or nations fighting to protect the borders that Europe drew for them. The lack of unified melanin-dominant totem is the reason why every melanin-dominant black person on earth, whether they have got totem or they don't have a totem, they are powerless. What is the remedy? Most of all, it is unity. And the next step in your individual understanding, after you remove all these ideologies of borders, is to move away from the symbols that were given to you by the colonizers. Symbols like this and the symbols like this that demarcates Africa and divides it and puts a small Africa, while East Africa is the largest continent on earth. Most of our rallying centers are signs and symbols given to us by the people that discourage our unity around a totemic pointer. Since we have failed in establishing and maintaining our collective subconscious as melanin-dominant humans and sadly rally in all kinds of archetypes or totems, we suggest that we unite in a single purpose around only 5 totems. Then we use them in our libations, in our prayers, and the focus using any of them as symbols and the signs for our power and the switching on our power. We must work smarter, hardest, and call upon their strength, these totems, for wisdom and power to result in our lifetime for real maturation in cultural and historical as well as genetic affiliation. With billions of signs and symbols awash on the earth, which we encounter every day, our only hope is through a dominant and influential totemic list, which we will adopt en masse without doubt to neutralize other forces. These are the totems that we suggest as Marifado. Subscribe to our channel, Hamiti Iburu Ethics, and send us an email on join@marifado.com. This picture Rabbi LM Tumizulu saying, till we meet again, Siabonga, Tatenta, Edupe, Asante, Sana. May the lion give you bravery, and the tiger give you that fighting spirit, and the eagle give you the perception to see far, in front, now, and the back, and the viciousness of the shark protect you and they give you that power never to surrender, to fight in any circumstances, under any conditions, under any energies. And the power of Anobisa be with you forever and ever. Amen. 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 Ra.